I was absolutely convinced from the outset, as I am now, by the way, that if we force the American people to take a close look at the face of violence, the face of domestic violence.
Put his hands on me, or put his hands on my shoulder and rub, my neck sometimes.
Who were abused in every social strata, every income level. Doctors as brutal as plumbers, football players as brutal as professors. No distinction. The most terrible sin one could commit is the abuse of power. And the cardinal sin among all of those was to raise your hand to a woman or to someone physically weaker than you. Because it's always easier to pretend it's not there because it's a difficult issue. There will always be some man raising his hand to someone weaker physically, whether it's a woman or a child or another man. Never, never, never is it the woman's fault. This is not a woman's issue. This is not a woman's issue. This is an American issue. This is a man's issue. And it's time for men to start to stand up.
A new rule: just because Fox News is obsessed with the Biden sex assault allegations, it doesn't mean the rest of us have to be. Everybody's investigating, but there is no fact-finding here. And Democrats are coalescing around the position that this accusation must be thoroughly vetted for the party to keep its credibility. Well, credibility certainly is a problem for the party on this issue, mostly because they woke themselves into a corner when they adopted "Believe Women" as their slogan. Kirsten Gillibrand said of the Al Franken allegations, "The women who came forward felt it was sexual harassment, so it was." Democrats are the party of choice. We can choose not to completely fuck ourselves over this. I know it's a sex scandal, and in normal times, that's what we do instead of issues. But there are actually some pretty big problems going on right now. I don't know if you noticed, but America has turned into a failed state that does a worse job keeping its citizens alive during a pandemic than Cambodia. And to me, that's a little more important than Tara Reade achieving closure. She says Biden attacked her, and he says he didn't. Those are their positions. How about this for yours? Don't know, never will, don't care. Everybody says, we need to do everything we can to defeat Trump. Yeah, except anything. Well, I'm no good at being noble either, but if in 1993 Joe Biden had grabbed my nuts in a corridor, and I was in Washington that year, and I had this knowledge and revealing it could hurt the guy running against Trump, I'd save it for my memoirs. Geez, you waited 27 years. It couldn't hold another few months? That's what I would like to ask Ms. Reade. Why now? I'm saying, why not before Super Tuesday? Why not last fall when we still had a dozen other candidates to choose from? Why wait until Biden is our only hope against Trump and then take him down? This story is gathering an importance it should not have. There is so much at stake in this next election. The entire world needs to be put back together like Humpty Dumpty. Why should one person's victimhood trump everyone else's?
But 3 Republicans found a little backbone this week, and there is going to be, we are going to have an investigation of Brett Kavanaugh, who's up with the Supreme Court, as you know, and the investigation by the FBI is going to last 1 week. So put that on your fucking calendar, Brett Kavanaugh. Did you see this? Maybe he was turned around because he was confronted when he was getting on the elevator. Did you show a little bit of that video by somebody who had the guts?
That's what you're telling me right now. Look at me when I'm talking to you. You're telling me that my assault doesn't matter.
But come on, Republicans have a lot of trouble with women. That's a sausage party in the Republican Party. They know. Well, well, there's a this stuff happened so fast in this last week. We remember at the beginning of the week, you had a second accuser also rather credible. It was so compelling and so credible. During it, Brett Kavanaugh tried to turn up the music. But no, really, if that was a divorce hearing, she would have gotten the kids. That's how I looked at it. And you know, all this, and you know what? We have the evidence, his yearbook and everything. This choir boy act, Kavanaugh's like, you know, I spent my high school years concentrating on my friendships in church. A lot about church. You know, and he also says he's a big supporter of Me Too. In fact, when someone is ordering drinks, he always says, give me two. For 1 week, you can look your kids in the eye and say, America is not a country that puts a predator on the Supreme Court. In the White House, sure, but not the Supreme Court.
We have a wonderful nation, an incredible culture, but there are dark elements that allow unconscionable levels of, unacceptable levels of sexual assault and harassment that are affecting girls and boys and affecting men and women, from big media outlets to corporations to factory floors to servers in restaurants to our intimate spaces in homes and apartments all around this country.
Let's talk about Joe Biden. Now, you endorsed the vice president back in March after suspending your own presidential campaign in January. He has flatly denied the allegations made by former Senate staffer Tara Reid, who says that he sexually assaulted her in the early 90s.
So he has said this hasn't happened, and I stand with Joe on his nomination and believe he will be the best president, that he will be a much better president, not only than Donald Trump, but a president for these times where we need healing, where we need moral leadership, and I think he can provide that.
You are speaking truth that this country needs to understand. And how we deal with survivors who come forward right now is unacceptable. And the way we deal with this, unfortunately, allows for the continued darkness of this culture to exist. And your brilliance, shining light onto this, speaking your truth, is nothing short of heroic. And how we deal with survivors who come forward right now is unacceptable.
I don't know if you noticed, but America has turned into a failed state that does a worse job keeping its citizens alive during a pandemic than Cambodia. And to me, that's a little more important than Tara Reid achieving closure. Yes, Biden's accuser, Tara Reid, has been contradicted by multiple people, most importantly, Tara Reid. Just last year, she said of Biden, I wasn't scared of him, that he was going to take me in a room or anything. It wasn't that kind of vibe. She suggested she had filed a sex harassment report. Now she says she didn't. She says she was fired by Biden's office.
My dad was a graceful gentleman, and he used to say that the greatest sin is the abuse of power, and the cardinal sin of all was for a man to raise his hand to a woman or a child. And we can change the culture here. We can change the culture. And, you know, that no means no. And if a woman can't respond because she's inebriated or under the influence, then it's rape. It's a real simple proposition.
In terms of Senator Franken, this is a very hard issue for so many Democrats, because the truth is we miss him and people loved him. But he had 8 credible allegations against him of sexual harassment for groping, 2 of them since he was a senator, and the 8th one that came out was a congressional staffer. And I had a choice to make, whether to stay silent or not, whether to say it's not okay with me, and I decided to say that.
Just want to hear what you have to say about that.
And I've endorsed Joe as our soon-to-be nominee, because I think he is the candidate for this moment that we're in. I mean, he won the most votes. He won the most states. And what that tells me is that his message really resonated. And people are looking for someone with a lot of experience, who they can feel a sense of certainty with, somebody who's done the hard work before, who knows how to bring the country together, knows how to represent red, purple, and blue places well.
Senator Franken was entitled to whatever type of review or process he wanted. He could have stuck it out, stayed in the Senate, gone through his ethics committee investigation for as long as he wanted, for how many months. He could have sued all of the 8 women who came out against him. Those were his choices. But I had to make my choice. I am a mother of boys. And the conversations I was having at home at the time were very upsetting. Because Theo said to me, "Mom, why are you so tough on Al Franken?" And as a mother, I had to be really clear. It is not okay for anyone to grope a woman anywhere on her body without her consent. It is not okay to forcibly kiss a woman ever without her consent. It was not okay for Senator Franken, and it was not okay for you, Theo, ever. So I needed to have clarity. And if there are a few Democratic powerful donors who are angry because I stood up for women who came forward with allegations of sexual harassment, that's on them. There are multiple allegations of assault and harassment against him, and the near silence is deafening coming from the Republicans. I really believe this should not be about any one party. It should not be partisan. This kind of behavior is not okay. It is not acceptable. We need accountability. And I think the Republicans should show far more leadership than they are today. And they need to speak out and send the money back and hold their own accountable. So the silence is deafening. I mean, it's.
And I've endorsed Joe as our soon-to-be nominee.
So the silence is deafening. I mean, enough is enough.
But Gillibrand was unwilling to wait.
You're a lawyer. You believe in due process. Why not allow?
He's entitled to as much due process as he wants. He doesn't ever have to resign. That's his choice.
But it feels
and
like...
my choice is to speak out.
But it feels like to be accused right now is to be convicted. What is the harm in waiting and letting all of the facts come out and going into an investigation? Where's the harm in that?
Where's my moral compass if I can't speak out just because I like someone, just because they're my friend? It's okay to be a harasser as long as you're my friend. That is not okay. I heard allegation after allegation. They were credible allegations. I believed the women. I believed the women. I believed the women. I believed the women. I believed the women.
And I've endorsed Joe as our soon-to-be nominee.
They only want a he said, she said scenario. In fact, they should be allowing the FBI to do a complete background check now that they have this allegation, which has not been done.
Dr. Blasey Ford's lawyer has announced that she has written a letter, her client has written a letter to the committee asking for precisely that, asking that an FBI investigation be conducted before a hearing. What do you think happens next?
Well, I think we should have that investigation because, as you mentioned, Dr. Anita Hill's editorial, she wrote that you really need to have a nonpartisan review of facts so that the senators can then use those facts as the basis to form their questions.
Let me ask you this. One thing I think that's unclear to a lot of people as they watch this unfold is, what are we trying to determine? Like, what's the thing that gets determined and what's the standard of evidence that you're looking for? I mean, as someone who's going to vote, and I suspect I know how you would vote even before this allegation, but as someone who will vote if this nomination goes forward, like, what is your understanding of the benchmark or the standard you're looking for?
Yeah. Well, the question is Judge Kavanaugh fit to be a Supreme Court justice? Does he have the character and the integrity that is necessary to be a justice? And if he has this violent background where he has assaulted a woman and covered her mouth when she's trying to scream, then why should be a justice on the Supreme Court with a lifetime appointment who's going to make fundamental decisions about women's lives? I don't think he's qualified because of his record on women's issues specifically.
Knows how to represent red, purple, and blue places well.
Final question. Do you believe that Dr. Blasey Ford is telling the truth about what happened?
I believe her. And as experts have said, this is what trauma looks like. It gets relived much later in time. Right. A lot of you don't remember everything. You remember the most poignant moments. You remember the things that are seared into your memory and have affected you your whole life. I believe her. She is credible. She should be heard. And this Senate should treat her with respect and dignity that she deserves.
Your 8-month stint working for Biden, you claim you were sexually harassed.